Time is one of those things that we use as a measurement of discipline. It's something that we can't see or touch, but the effects of time are so obvious. Make enough bad decisions, time will show you the outcome. If you binge on enough snacks, get 5 hours of sleep, or you never ever finish a project, eventually time will catch up to you. We are all bound by time, and our perceptions of ourselves and the world is mediated by what we imagine. Sometimes we put things off and we take too long to start something. We become distracted and overlook the most efficient route of doing things. Whether you're running late or scrolling on your phone or chit-chatting too long to a colleague at lunchtime. So the real question is, why do we waste time with something so finite? You know, you've been there where you've had this whole to-do list, but yet it's the end of the day and you haven't completed it. It's nowhere near what you wanted to do. So in this video, I'm going to go through some reasons why you may feel time is just slipping through your hands. I've always wanted to be a designer for the longest while, and it's only something that I've actually achieved fairly recently. And before then, I wouldn't say that my spark had been totally lost, but it was definitely laying there dormant. And I would have flashes every now and again, envisioning myself in a profession where I would be designing all these things. But when I think about it, I never really applied myself and remained consistent. When I left uni, I kind of fell into what was comfortable. And when I entered the workforce, I thought I had it sorted. I thought that my plan was a sure thing, but as time went on, the no's started to compile and my self-doubt started to really creep in. And after a while, hearing no enough times, it made me kind of lose my spark for any type of design that I had. And then you get distracted by money of other jobs and fancy titles of things that sound good on paper, but in reality when you're doing it, it's just dead boring. So I made that mistake of working in professions where it wasn't fulfilling. It was essentially just wasting my time. And when you're young, distractions are very attractive, especially when you start playing this comparison game with your counterparts, which I think we all do to varying degrees. And whether you like to admit it or not, the trick is to really take a step back and to think to yourself, am I doing this job for myself? Far too many people work in professions or do things that just ultimately do not serve them. It doesn't serve the bigger picture of what you really want. And many people are losing their enthusiasm for their career. And there's even a term called quiet quitting, where they've realized that they are wasting their time. Whatever they're currently doing, it doesn't serve them, even if they've spent years trying to obtain that profession. And I know so many people who have studied degrees or masters even, only to realize this is not maybe the route that they want to go down. And that's why I'm a big believer on visualization, even if it's just for the next day, week or month. For me, this entails writing your goals down. Whether you're writing it in a journal or a wall, this needs to be looked at on a frequent basis. And writing them down is the easy part. The hard part is actually just checking back in with what you've written to say to yourself, are you actually doing what you said that you was going to do? And I like this because it's a visual reminder, something you can see. Because at the end of the day, if I'm left to my own devices, I'm not going to get anywhere near as much completed. More and more people are suffering from burnout. It's like we are ill-equipped to deal with this emphasis on our self-worth through work. And this is one of the reasons that can lead us down to just exhaustion. When you're constantly in a state of fight or flight mode, which is actually a state for us to handle danger, you're always going to be in this heightened state, which is just unnatural to maintain. Work and life will have its ups and downs when it comes to being demanding. And one key thing that's helped me when I'm feeling exhausted is to see where I can reduce my decision making. Over the course of a week, we're making hundreds, if not thousands of decisions. It's decisions that take time, that's all a cognitive load that can eventually just lead to decision fatigue. And I can't tell you the amount of time that I've wasted deliberating on decisions. Even when I've made it, I'm still deliberating if I've made the right decision. And if you want to take things even further, you can even rank your decisions in priority. This way you can see what's most important, to make sure most of the difficult ones are done and out the way. And I even go as far as not making any important decisions when I'm tired, because when you're tired, you're more likely to cut corners and just put things together and not really do it properly. I was in the gym the other day and I was talking to someone, and while we were talking, I noticed another person doing everything when it came to the machines. And they were boasting how to use resistance bands while doing press-ups at the same time. And yes, while that may sound interesting, I said to my friend, why do people try to reinvent the wheel? Instead of doing a normal press-up, this guy here is doing it with resistance bands. And I think this happens in life where we take simple things and we overcomplicate it. We focus on the details that provide us with some progress, but nothing beats focusing on on the fundamentals. In this case, in the gym, I would say it's the core movements. Once you master the fundamentals, you can actually have a real great physique. And I even saw this in myself when I was trying to learn a language. I was focusing on these fancy phrases and sayings rather than understanding the building blocks of grammar. If you're trying to lose weight, it's not the fancy exercises or the superfoods that you might eat or the protein shakes. It's actually making sure you're being consistent with the amount of time that you're hitting the gym. These are the core factors that will probably help you the most. And yes, the other things may help. It's like an additive. It's a cherry on the top. When I think about it, this is actually really similar to the 80-20 rule. This is where you're going to get 80% of your results by doing 20% of the work. And I think a lot of us avoid the fundamentals because they seem so basic. So when you think of something that's basic, it's boring. It's not exciting, is it? And when you've got a goal in mind and you want to achieve it, we really tend to just overcomplicate it because it's this big goal in our minds. And I remember a while ago, I went go-karting, and the person who had won, the guy that worked there, said he had won because he was the most consistent on the track. Not because he was the fastest or he overtook the most people. It was because he stayed on the track and he just completed the track most consistently throughout, more than anybody else. And I kind of feel like that's the same analogy we can kind of use when it comes to trying to produce any type of goal. The guy who had won had stuck to the basics of just completing the track. And I remember quite some time ago, it always seemed like time was against me. It always seemed like I was chasing it because maybe I was focusing on the details. And if you're not careful, you can be one of those people that end up saying they should have done this or they would have done that. Sometimes it shouldn't be about the amount of hours that we worry about wasting. It should be about the scraps of time that get lost in between. It's the countless minutes that get spent on busy chores, answering emails, or just replying to non-urgent things. Perhaps we need to make a shift to reduce the amount of time we spent worrying about time.